Hey, internet. How's it going? The only other review I've ever done on the channel is for Vampire Survivors, and it was more of a meme review, but I thought it might be fun to do an actual review of Holocure, because I don't think there's been very many, and also because I've played a lot of the game. Oh, I should put the chat up here. I just realized I don't have chat showing. There we go. Hey, Merritt. Hey, Arab. Wakapone, Wanderer of the Waste. Welcome, guys. How's it going? Hold on. There we go. I'm qualified. Well, that sounds good.
Nice.
All right. So I'm thinking about a little bit how I wanted to do this review. I've got some notes.
Nice.
So we're gonna go through several different aspects of the game, and then I'll give it kind of like an overall. I don't know if I'll do like a score, but at least like give it my. And then yeah, we'll go from there. So to kick things off, let's start with like the graphics of the game. So, or you know, let's even go back up a little bit. Let's talk about what is Holocure, right? So Holocure is a fan-made free game that is a tribute to both Vampire Survivors, the game, and is a tribute to the Hololive streaming company and all of the talents belonging inside of Hololive. And so it has a lot of the same tropes. Hey Alex, hey Legion, has a lot of the same tropes as the Vampire Survivors survival genre that's been kicked off. Now keep in mind, Vampire Survivors didn't create the genre, but it definitely is the most popular of the genre. And so you're going to have a lot of the same things. So you're going to have trying to survive until a certain amount of time. You're going to kill enemies. That basically the enemy movement is going to be primarily walk towards your character. You get damaged by enemies running into you. You get damaged by projectiles. In Holocure, you can also get damaged by explosions that happen from certain enemies. And then similar to the other games, you are going to kill enemies, collect XP and coins from those enemies. The XP is for that specific run. To level up, select new randomized collections of items and weapons. And get stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's like the basics of the game. Let's talk about how Holocure is compared to, again, a lot of the other games in the genre. So starting with the kind of visualization, I think Holocure has a pretty good like UI aesthetic to it. I love this kind of intro logo. I like that. I mean, right now you can see all of the different talents, but I like that when you start playing the game, you see the few talents that you've unlocked. It's these 4 at the bottom right, and then slowly kind of like then it fills out and becomes the full group of all the characters on the screen. So I really like that aesthetic a lot. I think it's really cool. I think the pixel art is a great service to both the genre, and it's a great service to the characters themselves. I think they do like really well in this pixel art style. It's been interesting because like Lara has been doing the ironing beads with the characters, and the pixel art makes it really easy to do different kinds of ironing bead characters and things like that. So that is like from like the character and things like that part of it. I think the maps are okay. But they're not like super incredible. So I would say the map detail, and we can just jump into one really quickly just to see. Like the maps look pretty good, but they're not like insane, if you know what I mean. So I think on that side, it's not the best. The office map as well, similarly, kind of just looks okay. So if we go to the second map, for example. It also looks like okay. But I would say the maps are like the least most interesting part of it. What is great is the character art, the enemy art, the weapon animations, all of like the UI aesthetic I really, really like. Even comparing to like other games in the genre. Really, really liked it. Really, really like it a lot. And in general has this really great like pixel art, old school aesthetic to it, with some like modernizations in terms of some of the animations and things like that. So overall, I would say compared to a lot of the games in the genre, Holocure is definitely one of the most visually appealing ones. Both in, again, the character art and character design, in the animations, in the enemy design, with only really the maps, which in my opinion are like the least interesting, especially compared to some of the games which have really, really now very interesting and varied looking maps. That's the one place I would say Holocure doesn't look the best, but everywhere else looks like pretty good. Okay, so getting the let me pull up my notes really quick. Getting the graphics out of the way, let's talk about like character design itself. So if we jump into the play, we can look at each of the different characters. So apart from the art style, what I really like about Holocure compared to like even Vampire Survivors or a lot of like, what I really like about Holocure is that each of the characters has their own fully unique design, starting from the visual and then including their weapon and including their skills and including their special. So yeah, like I really, really like how everything about them is all concentrated on this like single overall design, and comes from a lot of their lore, which I find really, really cool. So we can take some examples. Oh yeah, and their passives, that's right. So let's take for example like Amelia, who's your first character. You have the pistol shot, which is a reference to her using her pistol in a lot of her like animations and things like that. You have her slow time ability, which she can like completely slow down time, making it like, which is very common with her theme of being like a time traveler. And then if I go into like her character in the game and look at her skills, her FPS, referring to her as like an FPS person, her detective eye being this like detective lore, and then Bubba being her companion. So everything is designed around the lore of the characters in the game. And I think, I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm not like the massive, I'm not like a massive Hololive fan, but the little bit that I've gleaned from watching clips that people have recommended and things like that, have, I would say, like, I really like the connection to a lot of like what they do. And I talked about this before on stream while doing like Hololive clips, that I'm not like the biggest fan of like the huge fantasy meta. Like I like the things that came up organically in the streams. I think those are super fun. No, this is definitely a stream. It's not a video preview. Yeah, so I like that. I like the things that refer to more of the like in real life things that happen during their streams personally, but in general I think the lore is quite good. And we'll certainly say the references to the lore is quite good. And what that also means from a character design perspective is that everyone that you play is going to feel significantly different from each other. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the gameplay. But yeah, character design for me, I think it's one of the best, because in addition, again, to like the extremely varied look of all the characters, you also have the extremely varied gameplay of all the characters, because each character design includes skills, passives, super like powers, and weapons. After I splice his audio in Premiere. Very funny. And then the last part is like the hidden character design, which is that certain characters have certain interactions with specific weapons and items, also kind of lore based. That is nice little Easter eggs that are tossed in there as well, which I think is really, really cool and kind of gives it this, for people that are fans, I assume people that are super fans, it's a lot of really good like fan service built into the game. Okay, so that's, I think, a good overview of like the character design and kind of in general how that all comes together, bringing their lore into their abilities that the characters play. So then next up we have sound. So I would say sound is like pretty good across the board. I think the music is great. So let me start with music. Music is fantastic. I like all the songs. So we have like the main Holocure theme when you're sitting at the menu is quite good. You have the different music that plays when you do gachas. So like if we just like do a gacha here, like all this sound is like pretty cool. You have the in-game music, so we can just go through a couple of the stages. So I really like, you know, each of the map's own stages is kind of cool. So we have this music on stage 1, which is quite good. And I guess it's all references to their songs, remixes of their songs. I personally don't know that as well as other people do. But like, I like the music. I will say any music after playing it for like way too long is going to get stale, but like, it's a lot of variety. And it makes it feel, again, making each map feel distinct with its own music and so on. Let's listen to the other couple ones. I like the Halloween one a lot. This is the new map. Let's pick a different character. We keep going with Amelia. We'll grab Gura here. But yeah, really like all this music. And again, my understanding is that it's references to Hololive music. I don't really know that. I'm not as like familiar. It's all references to those music. I think I have heard this song before because I think chat made me listen to this music once upon a time. But yeah, really, really like the music. I think it's quite good. And the sound isn't like bad. I think if there's any sound that I don't particularly love, it's the sounds of like the menu sounds, the little, like I don't really love this as much. I think a more subtle sound would be okay. And the experience grabbing sound is not my favorite either. The little chink, 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 chink can get really annoying after a while. But otherwise, it's actually like not too bad. What's really great sound is like the different weapon sounds. The sound of getting hit, that little meh. I like that quite a lot. When abilities go, I like that there's a lot of sound to tell you about things. Like when you have your special up, when bosses appear, all that kind of stuff. There's like pretty good sound effects and cues to help you kind of know what's going on. I think that's quite good and make up for what I would say is like the weakest, which is the click, 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 click of getting all the coins and the menu kind of scrolling sounds like this. Sorry about that. Just had to do a little sneeze there. And then what's really fun is then like later when you get like the stamps and stuff, I do like the dutes. Obviously they also get obnoxious after a certain amount of time, but the dutes are also pretty fun. Oh, also I like the coin sound. It's interesting because I actually don't like the chink 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 of the experience, but I like the little chink of the gold sounds, so I don't know. But yeah, in general, so I would say sound design mostly good, with like this sound and the experience sound being the outliers of being kind of annoying and can get a little grating after you listen to it a lot. And then music just across the board being quite good. I do hope everyone likes the sound of money. I will sneeze myself. I do think that it would be nice if similar to like Vampire Survivors, there was a little bit of character specific music. I think that would be kind of fun. I understand how hard that would be to like layer in and how much more music you'd have to add, but I think that would be kind of cool. But given what we have, I think it's still quite strong in terms of music. Okay, so I think we've covered graphics, we've covered sound, we've covered character design. I think it's a good time to actually jump into the gameplay itself. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, when we're talking about the game in general and what it is, it does have a lot of the same tropes, for better or for worse, of the genre. The traditional, you level up, you randomly pick an item or a weapon, you you fight enemies that largely just move towards your character in a static fashion. But I do think that Holocure does a good job of adding in some additional make the game stand out a little bit from all of the other games in the genre. So the first ones we've already kind of mentioned. The weapons are completely unique to Holocure. Each character. So the other games, usually you have a different starting weapon, but in Holocure, the weapon is specifically designed around that character. That gives, again, a little bit of uniqueness to each time you play. So whether you have a gun or a trident, or you're throwing tarot cards or whatever, this means that your starting weapon and your main weapon is going to be extremely different depending on who you play. The other thing that it does add is the special. Now, it's not the only one in the genre that has a special ability, but again, what's nice is the special abilities are specifically designed for each character. And the specials range from like usefulness, but I feel like in general it's pretty well balanced between characters that have really good weapons and mediocre specials to really good specials and really mediocre weapons. So I think they're kind of well balanced, and it's nice giving the flexibility to kind of design around that. And then the third, like, really unique thing, and we've talked about it before, is the skills being completely specific to each character, so that each of the and beyond just like playing with the new weapon and the new ability, you also have an effect on all of your existing weapons and existing items because you have skills that change things up, right? So if I just like, again, randomly jump into another character, we can jump into Fubuki here and look at Fubuki's skills. Fubuki's going to have a high dodge chance. Fubuki's going to have increasing speed and have an extra dodge, and then again, even more speed and extra attack. And so you're going to have a fast character that dodges, and that's going to inform the way that you play. I think other games in the genre like Rotato do this pretty well, but the way it's done here is actually pretty good. And I like that it's all, again, very lore specific, so that each character feels like how you could imagine them being in a video game, with a combination of their skills, their power up, and their special. But that's just the start, right? So that's like the character part of it. But in addition to the character part of it, you also have the first game to do ultimates that are combining two weapons into a brand new weapon, which I think is quite cool. A lot of them, the standard ones, are like weapon plus item becoming an upgraded weapon. It's kind of cool to see two weapons coming together and becoming a new one. And I would say, again, there are other games that do this now. There's a few other games in the genre that have now done this combination one. But this was the first one to do it, and I think it was a really cool way to go beyond kind of the standard. And then in addition, in the most recent update, they also added this whole like stamp feature. So stamps are another way to enhance your run and make it slightly different. So you can add these stamps, and they range from being able to deliver gold they range to having extra. You can get extra projectile count. You can increase the do with those stamps to make your main weapon even more different than usual, which I think is very, very interesting. Now, my one criticism of a couple things. So one is the stamps themselves. While I do like the stamps, I personally think that there was a great opportunity to make the stamps a little bit stronger, more unique, and also limit how many you get. I think that like getting 1 or 2 stamps and then having them be more powerful and having a bigger effect might have been more interesting than what we have now, which is there's just like 24 stamps and you just grab 3 random ones and go them together. And the main reason I say that is because there's been a few different combinations that in my opinion are just like the strongest almost universally. And so I feel like the diversity would be better if the stamps were more like, again, more powerful, but you got only 1, maybe 2. I think would be more interesting, especially powerful in a way that they like alter the weapon from a lot, or will alter the weapon a lot. That would be my take. The only other thing that I think, let me just check my notes again. Yeah. The other big problem that I have with Holocure is the same problem I have with most of the games in the genre, which is the meta progression is too strong. The upgrades are too strong and too necessary for a normal player to be able to win with. And I kind of don't like that. I mean, I've talked about, I'll be on my soapbox. I've been on the soapbox so many times. It's like repeating all the time. But I really, sorry, my daughter's just yelling at me. I really wish that that the meta progression wasn't so critical and wasn't so powerful. I think it could have been toned down. Because like really, by the time you're done upgrading everything, oh, also I guess I didn't level this up for some reason. Oh, that's because I was going for the low enchantment chance. That's right, or low enhancement chance. But they become so strong that it makes regular runs stupidly easy, but if you don't upgrade them, you can't do the harder runs. So it's like, I don't know. I just don't really love that. I've never been a fan of meta progression, and I think it's one of the weakest spots of Holocure because of how critical the meta progression win the runs, right? Like unless you actually do the meta progression, you're never going to win some of the more difficult runs. Okay, so I think we've talked about gameplay, we talked about graphics, talked about sound. Last thing is replayability, and I think it's been pretty clear for kind of how I've talked about it so far, is that what's great about this game is the replayability of having so many unique characters, and they each play extremely differently than each other. Yes, it is not a pre-recorded thing. Yes, I know people keep asking. But yeah, the characters make it so that you can, I mean, at minimum, you could play at least, what, 5 times, 6 times, 30 times, and it's going to get better and better and better. So, like, as the game progresses, they'll get more and more characters. So I think that's the best thing it has for it. Where it is a little bit weak is the maps, especially the first couple of maps, plus the hard mode versions of them, are identical to a point where it's like not that interesting. You really have just 2 maps duplicated and then a 3rd map. Now, to be fair, I think the 2nd map and the 3rd map are much better than the 1st map, but it's still really only 3 maps and then a challenge mode. So I think that's the kind of the weakest part, as I think the game could use a lot more map variety, a lot more levels. I understand why there's not that many, because there's not so many enemies you can do, and there's a lot of unique enemies in every map. But still, that's probably the weakest point of the entire game, is that there's just not a lot of map variety. But I do really like that in the last update, we got this time mode for the first time, and I hope that there's more and more special maps that come into the game over time, because I think that like really sets it apart and makes it more than just, you know, survive for so I think more unique maps could be really good. I think more maps in general could be really good. But the replayability is there because there are so many characters and they are so different from one another. So that's kind of my thoughts on the genre. Ignore chat if you're a silly sausage. And I think that the game will get stronger over time. I think a lot of those areas where I said it was weak, a little bit of the sound and a little bit of the how to say it, a little bit of the map variety, I think it'll get there over time. But yeah, in general, really strong game. I think it's one of the best ones in the genre, and the fact that it's free is just so much better anyway. So yeah, I think the game has a super strong foundation. And so let me think. If I were to give it like a rating, I'd probably say something like, I don't know, maybe what the fuck?